Good morning, guys. Welcome back to my channel. I'm headed to Walmart to get some drinks and snacks and things for Allison's softball tournament tomorrow and to get some cash back. So I thought I would chat a little bit with you while I was on my way. I know that I've told you guys a lot of what's happened and what we've been through. I do try to find the positive in every situation, no matter what it is, because I find that if I dwell on the negative, then I'm bitter, and it's all I think about. It's all I want to lash out, and I have lashed out. What I find works best for me and for my kids is to look for the positive and to be the positive. Because there's things that's happened that's out of my control, and I think you need to control what you can, and what you can't, you need to turn it over and let God sort it out, and He will, and He does. And I've found that He's so faithful. I wanted to talk about valleys, anxiety and fear and uncertainty and just all the things. I felt like we did hit a valley. So when the school year started, I hoped things would be better for her, and they are. That she's pulling herself out of it. She had she painted her senior parking spot, and out of all the spots, hers went viral, and that made her feel good. It made me feel good. She ran for homecoming court, and I told her, don't get your hopes up, because kids aren't our biggest fan. Don't get your hopes up. I wasn't trying to be negative. I just don't like to see my kids get hurt, and I didn't want her to get hurt. So ends up she made homecoming court, and I couldn't be any more proud. And if Kennedy needed that so bad, I'm just so thankful that that worked out the way it did, because she needed that so bad. And then she's also being recognized halftime during the homecoming game for scoring a 30 or higher on ACT on so many parts or whatever. But she's super smart kid. So she works 2 jobs, goes to school. She's amazing. She'll be graduating with high honors, distinction, all the stuff. She's just, I love her. She works so hard, and it's the kindest, sweetest person in the whole wide world. I mean, she's just like, I wish she wasn't so nice sometimes. But with every season of life, it's mountains and it's valleys, and I've been on the mountain and I've been at the very bottom of the valley. And I will say that I think sometimes God allows things to happen in our life to put us at His feet, because when things are going good and we're on the mountain, we don't really, I don't really acknowledge God or have as close of a relationship with Him when things are going smooth. I don't need to ask for anything. You know, I think He puts us in certain situations so He'll jerk the rug out from under you, and He will to get your attention. If you're not flat on your tail, then you have no other choice. But if you believe in God and you have a relationship with God, you have no other choice but to ask Him for help. I think that's why He allows certain things to happen in our life, is to get our attention. But I will also say that with every good thing, and sometimes you have to be nudged. I raised my kids in the house I grew up in, and it was a small house, an older house, and I would go back and forth. We need to sell it. We need something bigger. We need something newer. But then my dad didn't build the house, but he gutted it basically and remodeled it. And that I had the same bedroom my whole life. I mean, that house was very special to me, and I couldn't imagine selling it. It was just like a hard thing for me to do. Would is to sell it or keep it. My dad got sick in 2016. He had pneumococcal pneumonia and didn't know it. He was out in the garden working one night, fine. The next morning, he was like, I think I need to go to the doctor. And my dad didn't at that time go to the doctor. So we knew he was bad. Well, then he said, I think I just need to go into the hospital. So then we knew he was bad. His blood pressure was 39/19. He was in septic shock. He was in Morristown, and we had to, I remember that hospital no longer exists, but I remember walking in the hospital because a nurse friend of mine messaged me and was like, I think your dad has sepsis. Asked him if he has sepsis. So my mom goes to the counter, the nurse's counter, and she said, does my husband have sepsis? And they said yes. And she said, then I want him out of here. They hum-hawed around, no, we can do it, all this stuff. And I said, my dad is leaving, whether it be by ambulance, my car, he's leaving. Like, he is going somewhere. So he ended up going to Turkey Creek in Knoxville. But he was so bad, he would have died. He would have died if they had not moved him that night, and they were not going to move him. So we were that close to losing my dad. By the time he got ready to be transported that night, Life flew him, and they had to intubate him before they took off with him because he was dying. He was in the hospital close to 40 days. He was on life support for a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. I was at the point that I couldn't imagine not having my dad. They have Kaylin, and she was 8 at that time, and she needed her dad. And even though I was in my 30s, I needed my dad. And my mom, everybody. I mean, if you know my dad, you know that he's just an amazing person, one of a kind. Give you the shirt off his back. I was mad at God. I needed somebody to get to God for me because I couldn't do it myself. And I think if you do believe in God, and, I know some people don't believe like I believe, and that's fine, to each their own. But I think if you do, and you were raised like I was, that there's that one person, you have that one person that if you needed a prayer through, they're the real deal, and they could reach God for you. And for me, that person was Larry Miller. He baptized me. I feel like a lot of things that are instilled in me came from hearing him preach and being raised in church with him. And I think he is, above anybody else I know, the real deal. So he anointed a prayer cloth, and I know a lot of people don't believe in anointing, and that's fine. But he anointed a prayer cloth, and he prayed over it. And I remember his son saying, he may not heal your dad, but I know that he can. And that always stuck with me. So he anointed a prayer cloth. I took it to the hospital that night, and I taped it to his bed. And that night he opened his eyes. And some can say it's a coincidence, but I know it was because Larry reached God and he sent help. And on command, he opened my dad's eyes. When my dad came off life support, they call it ICU psychosis. He was out of his head, didn't know who we were. He was crazy. He would fight us. He would tell us there was little girls under his bed eating pork and beans. Yeah, he would freak us out sometimes, especially when it got dark. I'd be like, Mom, I gotta go. He's crazy. He's weirding me out. He would see people. He was crazy. He didn't know who he was or anything. And I was mad at God then. I was like, I begged you to open his eyes. I begged you to wake my dad up and to give me my dad back. And you did, but he's not even my dad. He's not the same person. Like, why are you doing this to me? But when he was out of his mind, when he was crazy and he didn't even know his own name, you could say, Dad, are you saved? And he would say, yes, I'm saved. This person was preaching on this date, and he could tell you the date. He knew he was in his right mind. When he would tell you about his salvation, he was in his right mind. When he didn't know anybody else in the world, he still knew Jesus. And you cannot lose your salvation. You can't. He the only time he was in his right mind is when he was telling about how he got saved. And I think that it still gives me cold chills. But I got off subject when I thought about moving, when I thought about selling my house. After that happened, I was like, my dad's hands have been all over every inch of this house. I can't sell it. I can't move. Later in 2019, there was something happened, and it was a big blow up, and I felt like my life was a disaster, and what was I going to do? And we put our house for sale because I had to get out of that environment. Our neighbor bought it like that day. He wanted it, he bought it, and we moved. And that was it. We had to be pushed. We had all the blow up and pushed. I see now, at the time I thought it was a disaster. I thought it was like the worst time of my whole life, and my life was complete chaos. But looking back at it, I know that God had to make that mess to push me to be where I needed to be. We ended up leasing a house, 3 times our house payment. I thought, gosh, sometimes we struggle just to make our little house payment, and now we're paying this much more. I know my cousin, Steve and Debbie, were at the house. They helped me move. And I was telling them, I was like, I really need a job because I didn't work as a stay-at-home mom. I really need a job, but I can't work Saturdays because of ball tournaments, and I can't work this day and this day because of this and that. But if I could just make enough money to pay our lease payment, then that would help so much. And the very next day, I was called by my daughter's mother-in-law, and she had a job. And the job was the exact hours that I sat there and said out loud that I needed. The pay ended up being to the penny what our lease payment was. So I firmly believe that what you speak out loud, he hears. And sometimes he just wants you to ask for it. It feels good to be needed, and I think he wants us to need him. And even through this, with all that's happened and now I'm living somewhere else with all this that's happened, it was a big blow up. And I told Kennedy, because I had just experienced it, and I told Kennedy, I said, listen, you don't understand now, but I promise you will thank him later. There will be something good come out of this. There will be. And it's not fun to be in the valley, and it's not fun to be knocked flat on your back. It's not. But I will tell you that I have found when you are flat on your back, that's when you're at his feet. And there has been no sweeter relationship between me and the Lord than there is now. And because I needed him. My life was so chaotic, and my kid was hurt so bad that what else could I do but say, Lord, I need help, and I need you to help me. He's put so much joy in our life, and he's gave us so much to look forward to, and he's took care of us, and he's provided for us, and he's reached his hand down and pulled us out. And I'm just so thankful. So thankful that out of all the people in the world, I feel like he's better to me than anybody, and I don't deserve one bit of it. But he is good. Whatever you're going through, if you're going through something in your life and you feel like it's a mess and things are as bad as they could be, I'm telling you, God works that way. Sometimes he will let things happen in your life like that. So you have to move, because we get complacent and we get comfortable. My dad used to plant tomato seeds, and when they got big enough, he would always say, here, take one of these home, or take some of these tomato plants home and plant them, but you're going to have to get them out and you're going to plant them. They can't stay in that. And I feel like that's the same way our relationship is with God. I feel like we can't grow sometimes where we're at. We're complacent, and we've grew all we can. It feels good to be complacent and for everything to run smoothly. But sometimes I feel like God has to do something like that just to push you to be where you need to be, because it's not easy for us just to step out on faith on our own. I would have never sold my house and moved, it just being my decision. I had to be pushed. I'm rambling, and I know, and everybody in this parking lot's looking at me like I'm crazy, and I am, so I don't care. But God is so good to me, and He is so good. Even on the worst days, I'm so blessed. He's so good to me. And no matter what you're going through, just hang on, because I know that when you're in a valley, you're put there for a reason. And it's a lot of times you look back, I think once you come out of that, you're going to look back and you're going to thank God for where you're at. And there's always something good comes out of it. And we are finally to the point to where Kennedy's okay, and she's pulled herself out of it. And, she sees that there's more to life than playing ball, and there is. It's a game. It's a game. And she's doing so much better, and she's made homecoming court, and she's so excited, and it's made her feel good. And I just thank God for doing that for her, because she needed it so bad. But He knows what we need. He knows. He already knows what we need. But I think He wants us to ask Him for it too. He wants us to need Him. Anyway, guess I'm just a little emotional this morning, but I guess I'm gonna go in Walmart because I'm the crazy lady sitting in a car. But anyway, I'm gonna go in Walmart and get this stuff for the ball tournament, and I will talk to you guys later.